Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Wild Wisdom Podcast. I am your thwapping apple, Peter Stockbridge, and we're back discussing our favourite movies of 1985. I'm joined once again by the illustrious Alan.
Hello there.
And Mark.
Oh, hello there.
Hello boys, how are we doing today, alright?
Pretty good actually, yeah.
Good.
Alright, awesome. Well, we're changing things a little bit this time. We've got just a few features that we're going to discuss, a few movies, and then there's going to be a whole ton of other mentions which will sort of try and be as brief as possible. Just because there's so many movies this year which we'd love to discuss in high detail, but just for the sake of you lot we can't. So we'll just crack right on with Back to the Future. Great Marty!
You gotta help me!
Marty! This is the, if someone said to you, give me an 80s movie, they'll probably say Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's a safe bet, I think.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that everyone can enjoy. It seats itself perfectly in the 80s. You know exactly where you are. And it's the different genres that incorporated into the movie as well. You've got the intrigue and the mystery, the whole family fun aspect of it. There's something in it for adults as well as kids. There's a few sort of cheeky adult jokes as well as eye candy for kids, and this whole adventure about time travel and going back in time to sort of keep your parents from splitting up or not coming together in the first place. All that kind of worry. I don't know, it was like, no one had ever sort of experienced that kind of thing in that specific generation before. And it dealt with a number of sort of weird topics like incest.
Yeah, I think it's the only sort of PG film where he sort of suggests that and kind of runs with it.
It wasn't afraid.
I mean, even as a kid, I thought, this is a bit unusual, but not that it spoiled the enjoyment of the film.
I don't know, as a kid I didn't even think of that. I was just like, okay, it didn't matter to me, and I don't think it does matter, because it's like,
no, of course not. No, it's never pushed any further than what it is. It's completely innocent in that sense, as you say. It's a multi-generation film for audiences.
It's just a humorous hurdle to get over, isn't it? Really. Don't get involved with your mother.
It's very, very Freudian film in some ways.
It's some loose-fitting ways.
I think the original concept of the film was the Bob Zemeckis, the director, and the writer. The writer was going through his father's scrapbook from high school, and didn't know that his father was a high school president, sort of thing. So I never knew that about him, and then he wondered aloud, as if like, well, if we went to the same high school, would we have been friends? He says, like, because he saw a whole other side to his dad that he didn't know. So and then that sort of spawned the genesis of the idea of what would happen if someone, a young kid at high school went back to, back in time to when his father was at high school, and would they get on? And it all kind of, the whole story was built around that.
I loved how they wove in other things as well, like so when Marty's dad sort of didn't believe him or something, and Marty ends up sort of putting on the radioactive suit and going into his bedroom pretending that he's Darth Vader.
That's right, yeah. Well, that's what's great. Yeah, he finds out that his dad is actually a science fiction writer, because he says, he says, "Oh, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm writing stories, science fiction stories."
Stories.
Get out of town! I didn't know you did
Outer
that. Outer space, from other planets. But and then of course he taps into that, and then he already has the radiation suit, and sort of frightens his dad into taking his mum out. If he doesn't, then Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan
is gonna fry my brain. Okay. Dad, we
won't tell anyone about that.
But it was such a good ride. It was such a great adventure. I loved Biff Tannen's character.
He's great. Yeah, he's the ultimate high school bully, isn't he?
Oh, completely. What are you doing, Butthead?
Butthead really sort of came into the whole vernacular after that film.
There's so much that I'm struggling to find the words
Well, I think
to describe this beauty.
Pretty much got it there when you said there's literally nothing like this before. I think, not just for the decade of the 80s, but I don't think there was a time travel sort of film. There obviously were time travel films, obviously.
Of course.
The
Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
That's right, yeah. And then there was Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells and David Warner, the late David Warner. But that was the only other sort of time travel thing. But this is the first thing I can think of that really sort of encompassed.
Yeah.
Embraces the whole
fantasy. You think time traveling films? This is a quintessential one.
Absolutely,
you don't everything else is an afterthought. As good as they are, they're an afterthought.
With time travel, you have to make it so that people understand it.
Yeah,
it's such a complicated thing.
Make it
potentially.
palatable.
So keep it really simple, and I think that's the beauty of it, because it is simple, and if you want to delve in a little bit deeper, then it gets all muddled and confusing.
Especially when you're dealing with plutonium and flux capacitors.
November 5th 1955.
That's good. One thing I always remember that sticks out when Doc's putting in the dates in the car, and he says, if you want to go see the Declaration of Independence, so he puts in 1776, and he says, witness the birth of Christ, and he puts in the year 000, and then he goes to 1955. If he hadn't have mentioned about 55, Marty would have gone back to
Christ. Can you imagine how different of a film?
He's just back in,
there were rumours that they wanted him to go back to. I think this was probably an initial idea going back to the Jurassic period. I don't know whether that was for the sequel or not.
I didn't know that.
There is a mention of it somewhere. So if someone knows that, put that in the comments, because I have heard that.
Yeah, no, it's just. Although I know the original concept of the time machine itself was not going to be a car. It was going to be a fridge in the original script. And I know it sounds bizarre, but all because it was lead lined, and it was because of using plutonium. The person inside would be safe from radioactive blast. And unfortunately, that idea, fortunately for this film, it was shelved because Zemeckis wisely thought, we don't want children seeing this and locking themselves in refrigerators. He just wouldn't.
Sure, a Delorean might be a little harder to get your hands on.
No, very much so. Yeah. So they the original script was that the way Marty got Back to the Future was that inside this time traveling fridge, they went out to a test site in Nevada where they were testing atomic bombs, and an atomic blast was going to power Marty back to the future. So fortunately, that didn't happen, but it did resurface to a point in a recent Indiana Jones film.
Yes.
So that was, and the lead line joke was instead then. But we won't go there. But I'm glad that they thought, look, if it's a time machine, let's put it on wheels. What's a really cool looking car? And they come up with this DeLorean, and it worked out to a great joke within the script, where when it goes back to the future, it looks like a futuristic spacecraft of sort, and when the car crashes into old man Peabody's barn, they think, look, it's from outer space, and the wings come up out thing, and the smoke and everything. It's a great gag,
Yeah, it's peppered with lovely little
all those little bits. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, what else is there to say about it? The sequels got better and better and better and better. So we'll discuss them when they arrive. And
we should give shout outs to the actors. I think though, with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, Leah Thompson.
Yeah, just like perfectly cast. I think I sent something a few months ago about who was going to play Doc Brown.
Right. Yeah.
Bill Cosby was a name thrown in there. Apparently. John Cleese was another name.
I didn't
touted for.
That's right.
I think he was manic enough.
Yeah, he would have brought a different type of mania, a very sort of clipped English type of button down. But we all know from 40 Towers he can do manic. Of course, magnificently, he would have brought a very uptight.
But the final product, you really can't look past. You can't imagine anyone else.
No, absolutely.
Christopher Lloyd,
and the same with Marty as well. He was recast in the film. It was Eric Stoltz.
He wasn't the first choice. Eric Stoltz. I think he still exists in the film in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, very, but yeah.
They always wanted Michael J. Fox.
Yeah,
but because of the scheduling issues with the TV show,
Family Ties.
They settled on this other guy, but they realised it wasn't working, so they sort of had another chat with the the Family Ties producers, and they came up with an arrangement. And Michael J. Fox ended up working on the TV set during the day, and then at night he'd go and do Back to the Future.
And then the weekends he'd have to do the daytime sequences that you can do during the week.
I do want to say, my friend Jason, hopefully he's listening, this is his favourite film of all time.
Yeah.
Jason loves this film.
Good choice. He
loves this trilogy.
And I hope he likes his sketch as well, Jason.
He loves it.
If you're listening, Jason. I am going to be doing the Indiana Jones one, Jay. So don't be patient. It's coming. I just got to build myself up for the. It's on screen if you want to check it out.
It's amazing.
Thank you very much.
One of your best work.
Shall we move onwards? So Back to the Future, again, if you haven't seen it, you're insane. Go and watch it now. Stop what you're doing, drop everything and go.
Damn straight.
And then come back to the podcast and carry on listening. Right, let's move on to Goonies.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
hey you guys. Yeah.
I can't sing enough praise for this movie.
Yeah.
I really, really can't.
Well, this is great because we're into this era of films, a film that's led by children, and there's been a few obviously before.
Yeah, generally kids are quite annoying, but
and in this decade, they come more to the forefront. And one of the kids who was in last podcast, who played Short Round, was one of the Goonies, and the other kids playing
Data.
He's great. He's the Slick Shoe. Yeah, he's like a gadget guy. He's obsessed with James Bond, and he's just got all the little 007 thing on his belt and has these little gadgets.
That's his little zip line, isn't he? When we first meet him.
Yeah, he's great. But the actor children are so well cast and so well mixed together that they play like you imagine them being best friends at school. They really have that warmth and affection for each other and energy. It's fun because you feel like, because we were kids, we felt like we were they represented us in a way, and we were going on this treasure map adventure with them, and it's such a great concept for a film.
Yeah, again, another simplistic idea executed
Exactly. You got an ace director with Richard Donner, who previously made Superman and
Donner director.
Yeah, he's great director. And of course, it's produced by Spielberg, who also produced Back to the Future, what we just talked about.
Yeah, and Gremlins last year as well. And
Gremlins, yeah. So he had a very good eye, Spielberg, for what would work as a story, and then throw the best talent at it to the story, but yeah, aside from the kids, all the other actors.
You've obviously got Anne Ramsey.
Anne Ramsey is Mama Fratelli. I mean, what a great actress! Like completely frightening, but hilarious at the same time. She's got such a great delivery.
I only dropped you once. Well, maybe twice.
Exactly.
The only thing we serve is tongues. You might want some tongue.
Yeah.
Bottle of Vellicino.
Yeah, exactly. And the two guys playing the Fratelli brothers.
We got Robert Darby. Go on later in the decade to be a great Bond villain.
He's great. I mean, their argument with it over the pieces and the pepperonis are brilliant. But and also as well, another character which I don't know, perhaps it might not work today, was Sloth. This kind of huge, potentially at the start of the film, quite scary. The children are quite
scared of him.
Yeah, and he's very deformed, and
you see him from behind. Yeah, you hear him screaming initially off screen.
Yeah, and he's quite frightening. He's built like a brick shit house and thing, but as it turns out, he's very warm and affectionate, and he bonds with my favourite character in this film, which is Chunk.
Yeah,
he's always my favourite.
Oh, yeah, I love Chunk.
He's such a character.
Wow. A police chase.
Yeah, I mean, all the child actors are terrific. But for me, it's Chunk all the way. It's his film.
Yeah, especially when he's like looking in that in the walking for a refrigerator for ice cream. Oh, look at Mississippi Mud and chocolate eruption.
And the body, yeah.
Blink.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a stiff.
See, that's why it's great. You know, it has these kind of adult moments that are peppered in the background. You know, this guy's been murdered and he's got a bullet hole in his head.
Yeah.
You know,
He's just standing.
and the kids just deal with it the way they would as kids. You know, they just.
Well, when Chunk is being dragged away into the car, to the back of the car, the guy with the toothpick, and what's his name, Robert Darby in the front. He said, "Funa for
he's singing opera.
And the kid in the background is just going, ah!
I just see him be struggling to get. They thrown him in the back of this car, and then he's stuck next to the body again. And he starts screaming. He's a great.
He starts confessing. He's like confessed, and he just literally confesses everything.
His whole life. No, that's got such a great feel of improvising about it. That like, he's just telling his whole story. He's sobbing throughout, and Robert Darby's like generally.
He's like,
I really like this kid. Like, I think he's actually saying, I love this guy. This actor's terrific.
The funny was because when he obviously makes the initial escape before he gets picked up by the Fratellis again, he makes a phone call to the police.
Yeah.
And the cop obviously says, he goes, "Oh yeah, that story about the little green monsters when you throw water on them."
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
little nod of gremlins there.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, because he's known as a bit of a joker. Chunk that he makes up stories and he says, "Oh yeah, like the time Michael Jackson come around to your house to use the toilet." He goes, all right, yeah, he didn't come around his house, but his sister did.
But more than anything else, it's just like the greatest adventure.
Yeah, it's a wonderful adventure. It's a treasure map adventure, and takes place underground and all these secret caves and booby traps. And
that's what I said, booby trap.
Apparently, the initial shot when they go down that massive water slide after doing the skeleton.
Oh yeah.
Trap. When they go down that water slide and they get a good look at this pirate galley, and apparently that reaction is just like the first take.
Oh, it was genuine, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't show them that until the actual day.
The actual day.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
So they were like, genuine reaction, fellas.
You can see that actually now you mention it.
And obviously when they get, they make towards the end, all the parents meet them on the beach with the
police
and the media.
Yeah.
And they says about a giant octopus.
Oh yeah, was that cut from the
I
film?
always thought of myself, what was he talking about? And then he thought, it was just Chunk making up stories again.
Yeah.
But apparently there was a deleted scene about a big octopus that lived underneath this galley.
Oh really?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
I think they cut it because it didn't look that great. It was alright. It didn't look too goofy, but I thought it just ruined the pacing of the sequence.
I needed Stan Winston.
Yeah, I think it was a good shot. They cut that actually.
Because they just get on the ship, find the treasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Whaley. Thank you. You've made my day.
It's just like the cast, brilliant. It's just like the casting director needs an Oscar, let alone
Yeah, well, this is in the days when they really cast. I mean, we just mentioned obviously Back to the Future, but also this film. I mean, there's not anyone who feels out of place. They all feel perfect.
Corey Feldman, he was making a film at the actual time early last year. He was making a Friday the 13th movie. One weekend after doing the Goonies, he was called by the director of Part 5 of Friday the 13th, which I will talk about soon, to do a cameo for Part 5, and he was literally filmed in his own back garden in Los Angeles with a rain machine. So
He was a popular kid.
Corey Feldman, Corey Feldman.
In Gremlins briefly, wasn't he?
Exactly. He was in Gremlins, so he had a busy year last year.
Yeah.
In 84.
He's great at character. Mouth is great character.
Yeah. With all the things he's got in his mouth at the end. Oh my God!
You have a man called Mouth. Why are you not talking? And he's just like pull all these diamonds and pearls and things out of his mouth. And
we're not mentioning one thing though, and I have to mention it. It's the score.
Oh yeah,
it was so beautiful. It was literally 60% of the film.
Dave Gruschen done a great score. There's actually an advert about the National Lottery they're playing on the TV at the moment, and it uses the actual theme of the Goonies.
He's great. Dave Gruschen. He did some great films with Sidney Pollack. Tootsie's a name, a great one, and it has the same energy as that. I think he just got the whole story.
Captured it just brilliantly.
Captured it.
Like
it's
kids having an adventure.
And it has these sort of pirate sort of motifs in there as well.
And plus the old psycho thing when he plays when they find the body in the freezer. In the freezer, it's a great sense of humour. He's perfect. Pete's absolutely correct. The score gives this film so much energy.
I think it's more important. It's like if you took that away, it would not nearly been as
we could say the same about Back to the Future.
You could say that about a lot of these.
Sylvester's score for Back to the Future is
perfect.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Goonies, for existing. It is a tad of a shame that there wasn't a sequel. I know that Josh Brolin and Spielberg did talk at the time about a sequel, but
Yeah, it's been talked about for years. They
I don't think it really needs one.
Yeah,
I think it's fine as it is.
I mean, obviously you'd love one, but the risk. They had to do it at the time.
yeah.
They couldn't have done it 10 years later. It wouldn't have worked. If they just jumped on it at the time with a fresh idea, then it would have worked. But
I think the sort of direction, if they did go for it now, would have to be about the Goonies kids, because they'd be at that age now, wouldn't they?
Yeah, kids.
that's the only way I think it would work. But you have to have a fat kid. You have to have a you have to kind of
the mouthy one and
stereotype real life in not the political sort of social media version of life.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. Well, thank you, Goonies. Honestly, truly.
Yep.
So
thank you.
Thank you, Mister.
You made our day.
All right. Moving on to let's just get it out of the way. Legend.
Legend.
Yeah.
Which I've never actually seen.
You've never seen it?
Really?
No, I've
never seen Legend?
It's not something I intended to do. It's just the way that it's planned out. I've seen the old clip here and there. I know the soundtrack, the Tangerine Dream.
Well, here's the thing. There's, I'll mention it briefly now. There's two different soundtracks. There's an American soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah, he's good.
And then there's another one with Tangerine Dream. Tangerine Dream smashes Jerry Goldsmith's version. Sorry, Jerry, but it was too abstract. It was too weird.
Yeah.
And I think why Tangerine Dream's score worked so well in comparison was because it was cheesy. And for that time it worked. It was so brilliant, and that's where Ridley's mindset was at the time.
Was his version
just romantic?
The Tangerine Dream version.
Yes. Yeah. That was the European version, the Tangerine Dream one.
Oh, good.
So that's the one I would suggest everyone watches. Essentially, it is just about some guy who gets involved with a unicorn, or the slaying of a last unicorn. Again, this last unicorn theme. Or last two unicorns, or something like that.
Yeah, there's a pair of them, isn't there, to start with?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So they.
And Blade Runner, unicorn connection,
Yeah, there's all of that. There's the unicorn connection with that, but it's a fantasy story, but it's a really, really dark fantasy story. The shots he's incorporating, his smoke and mirrors and all that kind of thing with it. I don't know whether he had the same lighting guy or the same DOP
I'd imagine he would,
as Blade Runner, but it looked very similar.
Similar, yeah.
The creature effects were really good. I don't know who did the creature effects offhand, but the devil, or the darkness as it's known in this film, played by Tim Curry, was quintessential. There's no one else who could have done that role. There was no one else who could have pulled it off. It was so effective. I shat myself every time I saw that as when I was younger, because he did it so well.
I shit myself just looking at the picture.
Oh, it's honestly, I really would suggest you watch it. His performance is so good, dude. It's really. There's one of my favourite line in the movie is where he turns around and says, "We are all animals, my lady." Right? And how true that statement is.
Yeah.
It's like underneath man is a beast.
Yeah.
We have our, Neanderthal side of wanting to hump and pillage and destroy, really. So it does hearken to that, and it's like it's saying that you can't kill me because I'm present in every single one of you. And for me, that was a good lesson to learn. But more than anything else, it's great visuals, great soundtrack. The plot line is kind of loose, but you don't really care because it's an adventure and you're in really, really good hands with Ridley. This is him at his peak, by the way. He doesn't really like this film.
No?
I've heard. Yeah, he would. He says that he'd change it.
Tweaked it. Is that why?
No. I just don't think he liked it in the end. I think he was in a certain phase at the time, and then as time went on, he was like, I don't really like it so much. Maybe because it's a bit too cheesy and romantic, but
well, apparently
it made me believe in that.
So apparently he offered it to Disney before making it.
Oh, really?
He said Disney are making a fantasy film, and it's how he envisioned it being like a Disney movie.
Right.
They were a little intimidated. They thought, okay, it's a bit dark for us, so...
It's quite surprising coming from Disney at that time, though, because they did do a lot of dark stuff, Disney, didn't they?
Like Black Cauldron, that was pretty dark.
Yeah, they did some dark live-action stuff as well.
I can't see Tim Curry though in a Disney film with the look that he's got in this.
I don't think he'd agree for a start.
No,
fuck you, Disney.
But he looks absolutely frightening.
Absolutely, just a top 10 performance of all time.
Yeah,
in movies.
Who did
Tim Curry.
the makeup?
The effects was done by a guy called Richard Edlund.
Oh, I heard of him.
Yeah. He's quite. Ridley consulted him specifically.
Yeah,
because apparently it was his field.
I've seen his naming credits before. So that makes sense. Yeah.
But I don't know, it's the sequences, it's the action sequences, it's the pacing, it's the exposition.
Right.
You go into it, and if you're a fan of fantasy, you just go in and you're like, okay, fuck, what's around that corner? Jesus Christ, what's going on? Oh my God, what the fuck? But it's again, with what we were saying with the previous Goonies and the score, it drives you along and it's telling you what emotion to feel, and you get so heavily invested, you're on the edge of the seat.
Yeah. How old were you when you saw it?
I think I was about 12 or 13 when I first saw it.
Amazing. And is this Tom Cruise, like pre-superstardom Tom Cruise?
Very early Tom Cruise. This wasn't long after Risky Business, obviously.
Yeah,
was
of
his
course.
second film? I don't know.
This might have been his third,
Second
I think,
or
or third. Like, as a leading role, you know. Yeah, definitely.
But he's very Remington, very young.
Is he a pixie or an elf or something?
No, I think he's just a normal.
He's human.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason, I envisioned him with pointy ears or something.
No, he's very human in this.
There's some weird people in there,
right,
with pointy ears.
There's a
weird fairy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perhaps what I'm getting confused with. Yeah.
Got Puck in there as well.
A puck.
Yeah, I so want to rhyme it with something else.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up with Legend now because I could go on about it. But honestly, if you haven't seen it, please do give it a watch. If you fancy getting in touch with your 80s youth and letting go for a couple of hours.
Well, I feel like I've missed it out on my 80s youth, you know?
No, do it. I watched Once Upon a Time in America, so you watch Legend.
I will. It's a fair trade. Fair trade.
Thanks, Legend, and Ridley Scott, for that. Honestly, oh, God, I know you hate it, but I love it. Let's fire off the jingle.
Okay, 985. I'm not going to mention too many. But we're going to start off with the key one. Yet another Friday the 13th movie.
Oh yeah,
this was part 5.
Part 5 for 85.
The last one, part 4. Well, it wasn't called part 4. It was called Friday the 13th, the final chapter from 84. But they swiftly moved on with Friday the 13th. Now numbered part 5, A New Beginning.
You thought it ended.
Yeah. Well, they did say final chapter with the previous. Yeah.
This is meant to take place several years after Corey Feldman, as a youngster, killed Jason, hacking him with a machete.
Right.
And Jason is long dead now. He's dead. He's buried away. And this takes place in a sort of like a care home for kids with mental disabilities, if you like.
Yeah.
Or, social awkwardness and whatnot. It's called Pinehurst. And the guy, Tommy, who was Corey Feldman in this film, is now moved on to this film.
Right.
He's older, and and he's trying to mingle obviously with all the kids there. And not long after that, some murders start happening.
Oh God!
And we thought, okay, and it's very reminiscent of Jason's murders. But the film progresses, and this kid Tommy, he sees hallucinations of Jason just standing there like in the middle of outside the house, like amongst the washing lines and all that. Jason's
like Halloween.
Yeah, a bit like Halloween. I think they probably took the shot from there. And Jason's obviously standing with a hockey mask on. There's blood like obviously pouring out of his head, obviously where he'd been attacked by Tommy several years later.
Right.
But of course, you blink your eyes open and then he's gone.
He's gone, yeah, because he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. Right. Exactly, he's dead. But yeah, the murders carry on. There's some great, 80s soundtrack in there. Then you got a lot. There's a song in there called "His Eyes" by Autumnal Park.
Oh yeah.
And there's a girl doing like a robot dance in there, and she's getting proud. She's doing this dance, and then there's this character Jason, sort of attacks her and assaults her. But interestingly, when you do get a shot of the Jason character in this movie, the hockey mask he's wearing has blue triangles on it. Jason's one had red.
Oh, okay.
So this is a little hint to think this is not Jason. This is not Jason.
A copycat killer?
It's a copycat killer. It's revealed later on when he's finally defeated. The hockey mask comes off. He's wearing a sort of prosthetic headpiece to make him look bald and a bit off skew like that. Yeah. And he's obviously got a very normal face underneath the mask. And it's one of the paramedics who picked up the body of Joey earlier in the movie because he is actually the father of Joey.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But if you haven't seen this film, God, Jesus Christ. I mean, when I first saw this film, I was disappointed because obviously I wanted Jason to be in the film.
Yeah.
And as soon as I thought, it's not Jason.
It's not him.
Jason.
Yeah.
He's dead. I thought, it's not fair. Years later, it's got a bit more of a cult status now because, along with that Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, when Michael Myers wasn't present.
That's right.
This one kind of goes into the realm of Jason's there. He's just a hallucination.
It's a side film rather than a direct sequel. It's like a spin-off type.
What did you think it did to the franchise, though? Did you think it added in any way, or do you think it was just another character?
At the time when I saw it, I thought that the franchise was over.
Right.
I thought, well, Jason's dead. They're not going to bring him back.
Were you kind of slightly disappointed in a way that
I was
they came back?
I was disappointed that Jason was gone.
Well, the fact that they lied and said it was another one, and then
that annoyed the hell out of me. Even when I was 85, I would have been 2. I would have been 6 going on 7 when I first saw it.
Yeah.
Or maybe when I saw it. Actually, I probably saw it a year later, so I was probably 7 going on 8 because I saw it on VHS. My parents rented it from Variety Video in.
There's no way you were going to see this at the cinema.
No. Yeah, disappointed. But obviously, when I get to the horror corner next year, we'll go to Jason Lives, part 6, and we'll talk more about that.
Okay. So they probably learned their lesson in that, nice experiment, guys, but I think we actually want the real guy.
Yeah.
As
the Halloween series will soon learn. Yeah, moving on to, I suppose, more of a black comedy. It is now. I was pretty terrified of this when I first saw it. Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah.
It's got some great actors in there.
I don't think I've seen this one.
No?
I've seen 1 or 2 of them, yeah.
This is, there was actually 3 films called Return of the Living Dead, part 2.
You had Dawn of the Dead?
No, this was a different trilogy.
Oh, okay,
with that one, it was Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, years later. This was a completely different universe, if you like.
Okay.
So Return of the Living Dead, and it's set in a medical warehouse for medical supplies.
Right.
And this young guy, played by Tom Matthews, who I'll talk about next year again, because he's actually playing the Tommy character in Friday Part 6, but we'll get to that. He's basically earning extra money, being like a warehouse sort of assistant.
Yeah.
And they're talking about sort of government things they have. There's like government stuff they have in the basement, and it's got bodies in it. And so they play around with it, unscrew the lid, gas comes out, they start coughing and stuff.
It sounds very familiar.
Yes, yeah, but the gas comes in, it kind of pollutes some of the stuff actually in the warehouse. They've got cadavers up there, stuff like that, so they're coming alive as well. The worst thing also is this bald, rather hairless sort of cadaver they have sort of hanging up. He comes alive and they have to try and hold it down while they sort of do what they can to kill it.
Yeah.
Make it stop moving.
Turns into Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yeah. That's actually a good analogy.
And they made 3 of these.
They made 3 of them, yeah. The first one's...
The better one?
Yeah, the first one's good. I do like it. The weird thing is the 2 actors who play it, I can't remember the guy's name. There's Tom Matthews and there's another guy, something Karen. But yeah, that's Return of the Dead part 1. Okay. Also that year we had a sequel to Nightmare on Elm Street. This was called Freddy's Revenge.
Oh wow!
And again, Robert Englund reprises his role of Freddy Krueger.
As he should.
Does he get revenge?
Yes, no.
Yes, no.
But it's a very strange undertone. The director was commenting on this when the film was released, and he said, "Are you wary that this film has very homosexual sort of undertones?" Because the main character in this is a guy, which is fair enough, all good. But there's comments of "He's inside me," "Freddy's inside me."
Oh, the dialogue.
Yeah, only for a dirty mind.
Yeah, and there's a sequence because this kid he's living in Nancy's house. He's moved in. His name's Jesse Walsh, and he lives in Freddy's house. And he's having these constant dreams of Freddy taunting him, and it says, "I'm in you now, and you're going to do what I tell you to do." And so he's kind of messed up. He's got a really messed up teen. And there's a sequence. He's in his high school. He doesn't like his PE teacher, and the teacher's having a shower, and he literally ties him up with skipping ropes. And then whips him to death.
It's a bit erotic.
It's very.
Can you whip someone to death?
Probably give it a go.
It's gonna take a few old lashes.
Well, it depends what he's whipping him with. I mean, skipping ropes. He's tied up with skipping ropes. But what's he lashing him with? Is it?
I think he's another skipping rope. I'm pretty sure it is. It's been a while since I've seen it.
That might take a while.
But this one really bothered me. This one. This is.
It does sound a bit.
It's not so much more. I wouldn't say it's gory. I mean, even the original film wasn't gory. It's very psychological in a way.
I mean, if you described that film to me and said what kind of film would you put that in, I wouldn't say a Freddy Krueger film.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound.
There is a sequence towards the end where Freddy literally comes out of him, He's almost like Jesse's a suit, and off he comes, and then it's Freddy.
To be fair, it sounds like they didn't go down the route of the same film again. They didn't have Nightmare on Elm Street Redux. It was something completely
different. Yeah. They went in a completely different direction, and by the third film, they'll go in a different direction again.
Fair play. To be honest with you, I had no idea that's what it was.
Missed that film.
No.
Yeah. And the thing is, from what I remember, there was no glove either. He didn't have a glove. Literally, the blades were coming out of his fingers.
Well, surely that's the... Oh, really?
Yeah, the blades were coming out of his fingers. There was no glove in there. It was just weird. Even his makeup was like... His eyes were like darker. He looked a lot more burnt than he was in the first movie. The makeup was coming up a lot more.
Well, it sounds like they're trying something a bit different.
Yeah, so I'll give him that. And
it wasn't more of the same. It wasn't more
of the same. They weren't pissing people off by thinking, "Oh, Freddy's not in this." Actually, he's just a kid doing it.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. I mean, okay. I'm gonna just throw in some honourable mention. You had the Reanimator that year. That was a fucked up film. Proper fucked up. He's basically dealing with a serum that brought dead things back to life again.
Oh right. I'm blimey.
Hence the title.
We also had Friday Night that year with Roddy McDowell stick.
Oh God.
Yeah, as he's called in Mad Magazine. Roddy McDowell, he's like a...
I'm still haunted by him in Columbo and those trousers, but never mind.
And plus we had Demons under an Italian production.
Oh yeah.
Which was weird. That's one of a couple of sequels. I'm not going to spend
It's quite a lot of Italian horror, isn't there?
Yeah. House, which spawned 3 sequels.
Oh yeah, House, yeah.
I know Brian James from Blade Runner was in one of them. I think he was in 3. I think that was called Jinxie.
Yeah, Brian James. Good. I haven't seen the films, but I remember the videos shop having the thing and the artwork being on the covers and thing. Yeah.
And oddly enough, I know you might want to mention this one. Return to Oz.
I just briefly mention it. You could classify it as a horror because all the way through, pretty much, it is a horror. You take the original, and then you spin it into a grounded real life version, and what you have is Return to Oz with Dorothy, who's a lot younger, and she's in a special home.
Okay.
Not for like insane kids, but I think it's like a sort of a convent-y type place.
Okay.
And she sort of misbehaves, and she gets electrotherapy. And while she's getting electrotherapy, that's when she goes to Oz.
Right.
It's set after the original by like 30 years, I think, roughly, and it's all fucked up. Right, it's just like it's decayed, and some bad shit has happened.
40 years. I mean, you wouldn't have electroshock therapy in the original film, I don't think.
No, that's what I mean. A long time has passed.
Yeah. Went to Arnie M.
It's a really grounded, really grounded, serious version, and it is dark all the way through. And the people that freaked me out the most was the Wheelers. They were called.
I remember them. Yeah.
And they were like these people on these sort of like wheels, and like they had masks on the top of their heads or something. They freaked me the fuck out, man. And then you had Mumby, the woman who could change heads. And you go into this gallery, and there's just like this long gallery of heads, just like with their eyes closed. And she'd like wake up one day and pick a new head, put it on.
God. Is it a PG?
I don't know what it is.
Probably might be. Yeah, I would say it is.
It'll be their version of a PG.
Yeah.
But you had you had all the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, but it's all done like as again grounded and different. If you're interested, watch it because it's very dark for its time.
Didn't the Tin Man more look like those mash robots?
It was a
mash ads.
Yeah. I remember them.
Fat sort of fucking round thing. Yeah.
And Pumpkin was Scarecrow had a big pumpkin head, didn't he?
That's right.
Yeah, I remember. That's what I remember again in the video show.
Who was the antagonist in this film, though?
It was Mumby.
Oh, she was the antagonist.
Yeah, I think she was. She ended up being.
I remember there's an ad campaign for this as well.
Yeah.
I remember they did like the stickers like the octopus for shredded wheat. The Wheelers was one of them. I had the Wheeler sticker.
Yeah. They have to sort of like put a flying machine together. They're at Mumby's place and they have to get away, and they find this magic dust or something. Really weird, but I don't know. I praise it for it's bold, brazen, I don't give a fuck. Here's a really dark sequel to a really lovely film. Family friendly film.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's where I got the kind of inspiration subconsciously for always wanting to have serious sequels to fun original things. Like I always wanted to see a serious Red Dwarf movie or stuff like that. Because when you have pieces that play around with drama and comedy, I love that. I love it. So yeah.
They made a third one, didn't they, with James Franco and Michelle Williams?
Oh, I think they tried to, but
The Oz, the Great and Wonderful, or something like that.
yeah,
Is that
it was
a
a
prequel? Oh, it was a prequel.
It was a prequel to. Yeah.
No, it was wank.
I think I saw the end of it. I don't really remember it. That's how much of an impression it had.
Yeah.
Fair
But
enough.
that's it. That's all I wanted to. That's part of my mentions for the end. But you know, there it is now. So, all right. View to a Thrill.
Oh yes. The final Roger Moore film for in his canon. Yes, it's great. Alan and I actually recently saw this at the cinema. They've been showing the Bonds on the cinema screen, and it was in 4K, so it looked absolutely beautiful.
New print.
Amazing.
You know, it's as good as new, and I was fortunate enough to see it in the cinema originally. You know.
Me too.
Yeah. I always remember where we saw it, and it's it's just you know, it was Roger Moore, so it's very familiar, you know, because I loved Octopussy. And this one, as a kid, though, I thought, oh, he doesn't quite look like how he normally does. You know, I realised he started to look a bit old. And before they made the film, he had a sort of... He realised he was looking a bit wrinkled, a bit of a prune. And to be fair, he shouldn't have done one more. You know, in hindsight, he said he was a bit long in the tooth. In fact, not so long in the tooth. He actually had tusks, he said. So he said... so he had a very light facelift, and hence the kind of wide-eyed expression he has throughout the film. Bless him.
Right, okay.
They got rid of that famous mole he had on his cheek. You know, that they sort of stretched him out and tried to think of a light one, so it wouldn't be too obvious. But I think cosmetic surgery has sort of changed over the years. He probably just got... Nowadays, he would have got away with some Botox fillers and things. He probably would have just scraped it. But God bless him.
De-aged him.
Yeah, de-aged him even. But unfortunately, his stuntmen carry a majority of the film, and they're very obvious.
Apart from the sex scenes.
Yeah, well, yeah, he always insisted on doing his sex scene. In fact, he has a very memorable one with Grace Jones, which got a big laugh in the cinema.
It did, actually, yeah.
Yeah, because he has a great scene where he sort of goes into bed and he goes to get on top of her and she throws him back and she jumps on top of him and there's a kissing. Yeah, as they start to get going, you see him, his eyes roll up with ecstasy. It's quite absolutely. It's only Roger could have done that. I don't think Sean or maybe Pierce would have done it. But
Pierce could have got away with it.
So I would have completely ignored this movie if it weren't for you two, because I always fell in love with Timothy Dalton ones and Live and Let Die, and I think I would have overlooked this one had it not been for your love of Zorin and
definitely. I mean, this was where we're at in the 80s. We're midway more or less through the 80s, and it's a very thematically, to do with computers and microchips, and it's a very loose remake of Goldfinger in a way. They just replaced microchips instead of gold with Zorin, played magnificently by the great Christopher Walken.
First Academy Award winner to play a Bond villain.
It was originally going to be David Bowie as Zorin, but he didn't want to spend 6 months on making the film, So.
And interestingly, David Bowie's song "Let's Dance," he's dressed up as Max Zorin, isn't he?
He's a very Zorin-esque character in the music video.
He's got the blazer on the shirt, the grey slacks, the grey shoes.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, he's a good actor in his own right as well. But there's something Christopher Walken automatically brings great air of unhinged danger. I think his eyes don't look like everybody else's eyes. He's a wonderfully intense actor. At the same time, with a great sense of humour. I remember saying to you after the film, I didn't realise how much he laughs in the film. He's probably the only Bond villain who's actually enjoying himself the most.
Oh, thoroughly, all the way through.
He's giggling to himself, like to his own jokes.
He's very maniacal.
But then we find out why, though, because his condition.
Yeah,
he's completely devoid of any sort of remorse or anything like that.
Well, he's mentioned in the film he's a result of an experiment by a Nazi doctor who was experimenting on pregnant women in concentration camps, and the results were the children were born with high IQs, but the side effects, they were psychopaths.
Right, that was it.
So that's again, it adds an interesting layer to the character, and it's proved in the film because the scene in the film where Zorin basically massacres his own miners at the end, and it's quite a fairly prolonged sequence of him and his henchman machine gunning his own men to death.
And the look on his face,
and he's laughing and he's enjoying it, and he's kicking them off the side people clinging on and stuff. He's absolutely no remorse whatsoever.
One gets electrocuted.
Yeah, and there's still blood, and he's laughing at that, and I remember as a kid thinking, God, this is a bit. I haven't seen this before. It wasn't Octopussy, It wasn't. There was an edge of unease about it for me as a kid.
Kind of brutal. Yeah.
And Roger Moore said afterwards that he's like, if he wasn't going to quit, he definitely was after that, because he was very against that sequence. He says Bond shouldn't be about cold-blooded murder and everything like that.
Well, he wasn't in that, did he?
No, but he didn't belong in the Bond film. He belonged in maybe Stallone or Schwarzenegger. No, of course he's from a different generation, you know. But it just goes to show how John Glenn, the director, was bringing his own dark streaks, which obviously culminated by the end of with License to Kill. We'll come to that.
Very fresh move to take, though.
Oh no, very much so. I mean, it's worlds away from Connery and everything, and it was also it tips its hat to what was to come with Dalton and the sort of more tougher, harder nosed film. But on the flip side, it has a lot of slapstick moments that John Glenn likes. With the fire truck sequence. Yeah, and Roger hanging on to these things, and the Keystone Cops kind of thing. They're like a police academy troop chasing them through the streets. They didn't probably age as well as I remember. But then there's a great sequence in the lift where they're trapped in the lift and Zoran's set everything on fire and they're trapped in the lift, and that was genuinely frightening, because anything to do with fire is obviously quite frightening. But on screen, I didn't realise, blown up, how magnificent it looked. It's just and he was an old-fashioned hero. He climbed out and got her on, saved her life, and carried her down the fire ladder and everything. And this beautiful John Barry score, it just really made it fly. It was like this sort of triumphant music of with the orchestra. It just I was a little boy again. I didn't realise actually how much of my inner child came out watching it again. I was a little bit emotional.
God bless him.
but great. It's great to me. It's great to everyone else. It's maybe not a great film, and maybe not even a great Bond film. But I loved it. It's because I saw it as a kid. It really holds up for me. I think it does it for you.
Yeah. It's like you'll talk to anyone, and they'll say User Kill is probably one of the bottom run sort of Bond movies.
It's the least mentioned, I think. One of the least mentioned. It
does get a lot of hate, I think. User Kill.
Does it?
It does get some hate.
Online it does.
Yeah, there's a lot of hate for.
I think that's very unfair.
Yeah.
There's worse Bond films. I mean, from Rush with Love, for instance, for me.
Yeah, everyone's got their own.
Oh, there's some really fucking bad ones. I'm sorry.
I mean, if it wasn't for Robert Shaw, Rush with Love would be.
Yeah.
Even Living Daylights, I'm not really a fan of.
Oh really?
But yeah, I've only seen Living Daylights a few times. I mean, I do need to go and revisit it. I didn't get to go to the cinema because I definitely would have seen it again.
It holds up better.
It's what you watched it as a kid at the time,
right?
So I think that's what does it.
So there's a bit of bias.
Yeah, well, it's like everything we've mentioned so far.
Yeah,
but it's got its quirks. It's not without its merits.
No, absolutely. It's got a great song, for instance. They really knocked it out of the park. Duran Duran really with that song, and it really makes the film come alive.
Absolutely.
And the other films we mentioned, like the Back to the Future, had a great song with Huey Lewis, The Power of Love, and the Goonies had Cyndi Lauper, right? The Goonies and Good Enough. So we're definitely much in the era of the song going hand in glove with the film.
Movie, yeah.
It very much we're in that era, and obviously Bond films always had a song, but this one was just fresh. It was great sound, and it works perfectly with the film. But I loved it. I mean, obviously, it's Roger's last film. He's a little bit older and stuff, but
interestingly enough, the last shot of him is throwing the towel in.
Yeah, I didn't realise. Yeah, his last scene, he's in the shower with the Bond girl,
Tanya Roberts,
and then Q's spying on him with this kind of dog robot thing, and to make sure that he's alive, and Roger, he throws the towel over the robot, well, obviously the camera, and it's
of course.
As Alan rightly said, it's a very subtle thing of him saying, "That's it, I'm done," and as he goes under the shower with the girl, making a great final Roger.
Dolph Lundgren appears in this movie.
Yeah,
Dolph Lundgren's in it. He's a KGB agent. I think he was
in
dating.
View to a Kill.
He was dating Grace Jones at the time.
Yeah,
and John Glenn was looking for someone just to fill in.
Yeah, they have a key scene with the KGB come and see Zoran, and so they need some kind of formidable looking Russian type guys, and he kind of fit the bill. They said put a suit on him and give him a gun, and he doesn't have any lines, but
he was blatantly in the shot.
Yeah, I think his character's called Venz or something.
Yeah, they give him a name.
He's in the credits. He's actually in the credits. He's not on credits.
Dolph Lundgren. There you are. There's a bit of knowledge for you. I never knew that.
Bit of Dolph Lundgren. which actually leads us into the next film on the list. He made quite a big impact in the next Rocky film, Rocky 4. Now, this obviously Rocky was supposed to end with Rocky 3. With Rocky 4, I think Stallone, still had bundles of energy, and he did this year, in fact, because he had 2 huge films out this year. The first one being this one, and Rocky was far from over. And in this film, he was basically America versus Russia, which is again the period that we're in now. As we mentioned with Bond, there's Russia and against the West, and it was still very much that in Rocky. The Cold War is still raging, and so this Russian fighter played by Dolph Lundgren, Ivan Drago, comes to America to take on the reigning champ, but Rocky refuses to fight with him. So Apollo Creed's like, no, I'll show this guy. I'll give him a bit of the old thing. And then an exhibition match that's led by the great James Brown doing a great intro, to
America, isn't it?
Living in America. It's a big, strong sort of song and dance, and basically Drago pulverizes Creed to death. He kills him in the ring. And I recently saw this at the cinema last Christmas, and in the lockdown, Stallone re-edited the film, and he took half an hour of footage out, which is mainly montages and training sequences, and actually put some of the story back in, and it's a completely different film. It's a much better film for it. There's lots more with the Creed and Rocky and his wife. It was really good, but it's a lot darker as well, because the fight sequence where Drago kills Creed, it's a lot more violent. The sound effects are more brutal, and it's more bloody.
So he properly knocks him out and shit.
He destroys him, yeah. It's just completely. I think his brain sort of implodes. Because as we find out, Drago's on steroids, so he to give him his extra strength. That's what happens. But this film is montages and it's a great soundtrack. I mean, if you're working out, it's a great soundtrack to work out to. Yeah. But it's and he has the big fight at the end. We know the formula by now. Lots of montages of training, and then the big match, and he goes the full rounds with Drago, and eventually wins the crowd over, because to the crowd, Rocky's the underdog, and because he keeps up with Drago, he eventually beats him with his determination and wins, and God bless America. It's very much that film, and which I guess gave him such a buzz that he leapt onto a previous character, which we mentioned, which was Rambo, and made Rambo First Blood Part 2. And this is again American flag waving thing. This is very opposite to First Blood. It's almost like a different character, because Rocky's like, do we go back to Vietnam to save some prisoners of war still in Vietnam? And he's like, should we get to win this time? It's very, very. It's very flag waving and fantasy led thing, which is a shame, because you got Richard Crenenbeck as Colonel Troutman, things. But this is co-written by James Cameron, all things. But he claimed he wrote all the action sequences, which, to be fair, are very good and very slick. And Stallone wrote the politics, So its heart's in the right place, because he's highlighting the fact that the soldiers who came back from Vietnam, they were spat on by and called baby killers and things, So
anything that highlights that is a good thing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it didn't go through in a very subtle way, so it's very. But the action is pretty slick, and I mentioned before, I'm not crazy about the sequels, but I did revisit it in terms of for this podcast, and it was better than I remembered. Great Jerry Goldsmith score. Obviously, he didn't have couldn't use it in Legend, but he got a great soundtrack for this. And Steven Berkoff from Octopussy and Beverly Hills Cop again uses his Russian pantomime villain as the villain. Hello, kitty. There's a pussy by my feet. Push here. And he's sort of torturing Rambo with his own knife. He's like, I see you are no stranger to pain. So it's very, 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 very creepy. And he's only in one scene really, and he where he's actually talking. So he hams it up and chews the scenery for all it's worth. Yeah, it's nonsense fun is the way I can describe it.
Typical 80s action.
Yeah, I think basically Stallone was so pumped he knocks out Rocky 4 and Rambo 2 and just. And then made shit ton of money.
Yeah. We're going to move on to others.
Yes.
This is sort of a fairly big list, so we'll kick off with Bruce's Millions. I'll just mention that briefly. Wonderful little story, and it's such a good premise because you can see yourself in this role, right? you have to spend what was it? You have to spend 30 million, but you can't have anything to show for it.
Yeah, 30 million in 30 days he's got to spend.
Right.
But he's not allowed to he can give like 10% to charity and 5% to other causes and things like that. But he has to have receipts for everything. He has to physically buy stuff. He can't be seen, chucking it away. So he has to spend it sensibly within 30 days.
Yeah, and it's how he does that, and it's just like he offers people just ludicrous amounts of money to just like tag along with him.
Yeah.
And then it's like right at the end there's like this one little tiny amount that he's got to sort out, and someone tries to screw him over, and I think it is famous, but I don't think it's
I think it's a remake of a film.
Yeah, I don't think it's appreciated as much as I want it to be. I don't know. But it is a very good vehicle for Richard Pryor.
John Candy's in, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's got a psychic role. You can't knock John Candy.
It's all about sort of baseball as well.
Yeah.
So that was a really good one. Really good one. Clue.
Yeah, Clue. I just want to give a big shout out to. This is the only film I think was based on a board game. I think there's been other ones since.
Yeah, but at the time it was...
Yeah, the time no one's done it is Cluedo, but in America the version's called Clue. So you got all the characters, Colonel Mustard and Mrs. White and everything. So 6 potential murderers in a big mansion, and the butler is played by the magnificent Tim Curry, who was on a roll with legends. He absolutely owned this film, and it was written by Jonathan Lynn, a great English writer who wrote Yes Minister, a sitcom in Britain. And basically it was so cleverly plotted that the film spawned multiple endings. So on the video or DVD or whatever it is you got it on, you can choose who your murderer wants to be. That's how cleverly written it was. You can have one where it's Miss Scarlet or it's Mrs. White, or you can have one where they do one each. It's very nicely tightly paced. It's only like an hour and a half. It's got great comedic moments. It's got a great cast featuring Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown, plays Professor Plum. Very sort of cheeky mate. He sort of struck off the doctor's registry for having sex with his patients. So he's
great Scott porno.
Oh no, great! Yeah, no, he's great. He's great. He's like they find a load of negatives of the maid having sex with someone, and Mrs. White's like, "Oh, how does anyone get into that position?" He goes, "It's impossible." "No, it's not. Let me show you." And he sort of throws her legs up on the sofa, and just like, "Get off me!" So it's got great little moments, but I just want to give it a shout out because it's a great little gem of a film. Not many people know about it.
Again, I think it's very unsung.
It's become a cult movie. I think a lot of people online rate it, and see it for Tim Curry. Originally, it was going to be Leonard Rossiter of Reggie Perrin fame, but sadly he passed away. So he got thrown into Tim's lap, and thank goodness he did because it was wonderful.
Commando,
yeah, Schwarzenegger.
Arnie.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
And can we just say happy birthday, Arnie? He's 75.
75 today. Happy birthday, Mr. Schwarzenegger.
Arnie. Leave those maids alone. Fuck's sake. Right, yeah, Commando.
This is like proper testosterone machismo. This is he plays John Matrix. He's a former Marine, special ops or something like that, and he's living a life with his daughter.
That's right.
A Latino despot basically wants a job done, and he has all these ex-Marines sort of killed off.
Yeah.
And he wants John Matrix to basically go fly over to an undisclosed country to take out the president there.
He's got like 24 hours to do it.
Yeah, to do it. And otherwise the daughter's going to get killed, and so this despot will then assume command of this island, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got Schwarzenegger, and he's got his usual crew of people. Bill Duke's in there. You got Vernon Wells, an Aussie actor, playing Bennett.
John. Yeah, great mustache.
Yeah, and you got Dan Hedaya.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
He's the one he's basically playing the despot. Yeah. He's hiring for the job.
He's very great, yeah.
And it's just...
It's so bad. But it's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
That's why people love it so much.
He basically, towards the end of the film, he raids a gun shop, and he basically takes out everything they fucking got.
Yeah.
Guns, knives, rocket launchers, grenades, the lot, you name it, he's got it. He takes it to this island, and it's literally about 20 minutes of him killing everyone.
And he doesn't batter an eyelid. He kills
so many people. I think it's the highest kill count of any movie. It's fun, it's ridiculous, especially the end. His fight with Vernon Wells Bennett. That's ridiculous.
That was hilarious.
Pulling off iron doors with your own hand.
Let off some steam,
getting impaled by a pipe. Vernon Wells kind of holding onto the pipe there as he's dead. So yeah, Commando. I love it.
It's great fun.
Yeah. Mad Max 3. Brief mention. sequel to
The Road Warrior.
Road Warrior, sorry.
Yeah. This is with Tina Turner, right?
This is with Tina Turner, and I thought Tina Turner did an absolutely brilliant job. Last act was a bit odd. The first 2 acts were great. Last act was a bit off, but it kind of worked still. Not as good as the second one, but I thought it was a nice send off. And
Good song too. The We Don't Need Another Hero.
We don't need another hero. I liked this one, but not as good as the second one.
Weird Science. It was John Hughes. This is an inventive film. It's got science fiction elements to it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And these 2 sort of teenage boys create their ultimate fantasy girl via this computer, and
they want to date for the dance, don't they?
That's it. They to make them sort of cool and also to do other things, I guess. With her.
Was it Kelly Brook?
Yeah, it was Kelly LeBrock.
Kelly LeBrock. That's it.
Yeah, she was the beautiful girl from The Woman in Red, which I mentioned last time. But she's
I didn't think she was all that, but I can see why people.
Oh, she was all that, Trey. For me, thank you.
Sorry.
she was.
So she's all yours.
She's thank you very much. So, yeah, there's.
Fun movie.
It's a fun movie. You got great little cameos from young Robbie Downey Jr. and
Bill Paxton's in there.
Bill Paxton is the shithead brother, Chet, who gets turned into this giant toad thing, and the grandparents.
Oh, catatonic in the cupboard. Love it.
There's smiles etched on their faces. It's such a the great little comedic moments, and like I say, fantasy elements, which is unusual, I guess, for John Hughes at the time.
If you've seen it, you know what
you know it. Yeah.
We constantly quote a specific scene, and I wonder if our viewers can guess what specific scene that might be.
Oh, Gary! I thought you were combing your hair. Yeah,
I was, bitch.
He was, but just not how you normally would comb your hair.
Vigorously,
yeah.
pubes.
He was constantly grooming himself. It's oh my god, yeah, that's a great scene. It's a very
great scene.
That's very typical of the 80s. The fact that you had these sort of teen sex elements sort of thing, but it's just great. It's a bit like Back to the Future. You have these science fiction elements thrown into the mix, so it's a nice mixture of comedy, sci-fi, and a teen movie. It's great.
We should probably mention Breakfast Club while we're here. Another John Hughes classic.
One of the Brat Pack films, wasn't it? With like Noah's Fire and
yeah. I think this is probably recognised more than Weird Science. I would
100%.
guess.
Yeah, this is particularly again another great song.
Simple Minds.
Yeah.
Don't You Forget About Me.
This goes hand in hand with the film. It's just.
I loved this one because it taught you to respect other people more than anything else. It was like, look, just because someone is sort of on their own with long hair and all mopey, and it doesn't mean they're like a weirdo. Don't judge books by their covers, and if you sit down with a sport person, I personally hate sporty type of people. It's just like, they're just getting off on endorphins. But if I actually sat down with someone like that, I might end up liking them, right? But, so this is the point. Don't overjudge people, and don't knee-jerk with your judgmental response, and stop judging people, I think, is probably a good thing. It's just like, look at yourself first before you start judging other people. So it was a wonderful way of delivering that message. And there's a couple of weird, controversial things about the film which we won't go into, involving Molly Ringwald. But largely, it was a great film, and my favourite character,
Judd Nelson.
I related with that guy big time.
Yeah, I remember you when we first met.
Dressed like him.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and when we first met at college, I thought this was Judd Nelson from Breakfast Club.
Yeah. Mess with the ball, but Bender, you get the horns.
Oh, he's got from Trading Places.
Paul Gleason.
Wonderful actor.
Yeah. Great movie. Cocoon.
Yeah, this was Ron Howard.
He was hot off of making Splash.
That's right, and this just focused on a retirement home
in Florida.
They're using a swimming pool nearby in an abandoned house.
Yeah, three old geezers,
not knowing that it's just been rented by a man, and he's got some things he's found in the ocean, which turned out to be cocoons. And these old men obviously go swimming, but when they come out of the pool, they're revitalised.
Yeah,
to the point where they're still old. They still look old,
but physically, mentally they're young.
They act.
It takes years off.
They've got the agility, of like a 20-year-old.
Yeah. It's like literally a literal fountain of youth. and the three old boys are suddenly rejuvenized, aren't they?
That's right.
Because in the cocoons are these aliens who have these the life force is giving off energy, and it so revitalizes their lives.
Because the planet they come from, no one ever grows old, no one ever dies.
Yeah. So these three old boys have basically use their newfound energy to. Well, the first thing they do is they literally come out singing, don't they? And they're full of energy, and they all claim to have raging erections.
Yeah, you got a boner too? Yep, blue steel. Cat couldn't scratch it.
We're in the mood for love simply because we've got one.
So yeah, Don Amici
from Trading Places.
Yep.
And you imagine him walking along with an erection.
And you got Hume Cronin and
Wilfred Brimley.
Diabetes.
Oh yeah,
and this is the line where he climbs into the erection with the shower with his wife, and he says,
"Want some candy, little girl?"
Which she doesn't object to, and then it cuts to the lady sitting down to breakfast the next day, and they're all smiling, and you got all these miserable women sitting around them eating their breakfast, and they're just beaming. So it's a great visual gag that they have, but it's
I'll admit I haven't seen this film.
It's a wonderful film.
It's a nice film.
Yeah.
Wonderful film.
It's a lovely film. It's a nice gentle film. You can watch it with
your family,
all family, if you don't mind erection jokes, it's great.
It's harmless.
It's harmless enough.
Brief mention of Brazil.
Brazil. This is Terry Gilliam.
Very fine Terry Gilliam film. There's an all-star cast, really.
If you liked, we mentioned it in the last podcast, 1984. It's very evocative of that. It's set in a dystopian future where you're told what to do and what to think, and Jonathan Pryce plays this kind of bookworm guy who sort of stamps all the things and corrects all the dots and the I's on the paperwork. But in his fantasy world, he sort of dreams at night of him being this kind of warrior with wings and fighting injustice and crime, and he has these sort of fantasies. And within the film, there's a kind of SAS style commando guy who is actually played by Robert De Niro, of all people. A very cameo role, and he's sort of fighting the bureaucrats who are basically telling you what to do and what to think. He's like a one-man army. When the government basically capture you, you're put into a room like Room 101 where they torture you, and the main torturer is played by the very sweet Michael Palin. It's wonderful casting because people like De Niro playing the good guy and Michael Palin playing this really evil bastard who basically comes out, and then when he's finished torturing someone, he's covered in blood, he changes his top and he goes and plays with his children with the toys, and is like, "Hello dear, how are you? All right, yes, well, let's have a cup of tea." And it makes it all the more warped, but it's very typical of Terry Gilliam with his sense of humour. But it's a great film.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I know it's very important, and
worth mentioning.
Similarities to Citizen Kane, apparently.
There's all those in there.
Young Sherlock Holmes. I'll just mention this briefly. A nice little adventure story about Sherlock Holmes when he was younger, and gets involved with some weird ass cult, and that's all I remember. But it was very shocking and dark.
Egypt and mummified things ever became a giant pyramid.
Yeah,
and they pour boiling hot water on them. I remember that as quite scary for PG.
Da Vinci's flying.
Very dark. Yeah.
So do watch that if you fancy.
Featuring Brian Cox's son, Alan Cox, as Watson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you can see it's his son. They both have the same gun.
Yeah. We're moving on to the mentions. I've only got one to mention, so I'll mention Explorers. This should have been lauded as much as Goonies, in my opinion, because this was so good.
Yeah.
It had
River Phoenix,
and then the
Ethan Hawke.
That's it. Thank you. That was it.
It's Joe Dante directed. He made Gremlins.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very, very good story. It's about this kid who has this dream about a circuit board, and he wakes up and draws it down and shows it to his scientist geek mate, who puts it into the computer, and he realizes that it's this sort of bubble that can be spawned in the middle of space that can hold anything. So they build this makeshift spaceship and they fly out into space with it.
Wow.
And that's all it is.
This is before Flight the Navigator, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think it was. Yeah, the year before, I think.
Right. But it's very unsung.
And they meet aliens.
No one talks about this. Yeah, they meet aliens.
So it says a bit like a Stranger Things kind of vibe, The poster gives me that Stranger Things.
It is, but it goes in a different way to Stranger Things. But yeah. It does start off that way for sure. Very unsung.
Yeah.
And I do wish that it had more exposure than it does.
Yeah.
So, Explorers.
Right.
Do watch Explorers.
Okay.
If you like Goonies, you'll love Explorers.
Good shout.
All right. Do you want to do a mention?
Fletch, a great film with Chevy Chase. This is designed a vehicle for him for his special talents. He had a very sort of, great sense of humour and a very sort of quick, rapid delivery. He plays a Fletch. He's a newspaper reporter in Los Angeles, and in order to get leads, he basically, he's a bit cheeky. He sort of can manoeuvre his way into, a government building or a police station or a hospital, and he pretends to be other people. He just assumes different identities. Like he's works his way into a country club and he's playing tennis, and just he thinks the name's on the spot, and he's just like, "Oh, what's your name?" He goes, "Oh, my name's John. John what? John Cocktoaston." And he's just like, "Oh, but it's Scotch Romanian, And he comes out and he pretends to be another guy called Poon as well. He's like, "Poon? What kind of a name is Poon?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Comanche Indian." It's a very cheeky performance, but it's a nice film. It has a great Harold Faltermeyer score, who did the soundtrack to Beverly Hills Cop. It has that same sound, and it's a nice little story of him solving a mystery. The guy is trying to pretends to be dead, to fake his death and collect the money, sort of thing. But it's a nice little film. It's Chevy. If you like Chevy Chase, you'll love this film. It's a perfect showcase for his talents. Witness. This is a great film. I watched this recently. It was on TV, and I forgot basically how great it is. I can't stress how great it is. It's got the perfect. From a writing sense, a perfect beginning, middle, and end. And a lot of people study the script, for writing purposes. It's directed by Peter Weir. He's a wonderful Australian director who made Gallipoli and The Year of Living Dangerously, and it features the only Oscar-nominated acting performance of Harrison Ford.
Oh, really?
And this is worlds away from Star Wars and Indiana Jones. He plays a cop who is initially questioning this witness to a murder, and it's a little boy who, an Amish kid, and his mum are come to the big city.
Say, this is the Amish one.
Yeah, and the kid comes to he goes to the bathroom, and the murderer is played by Danny Glover, from Lethal Weapon. So he's able to point him out, but he doesn't realise that Danny Glover is actually a corrupt cop, and so Harrison Ford discovers this corruption. So in order to keep the family safe, he takes them back to the Amish community and keeps them safe until the corrupt cops turn up to kill him. And it's a very amazingly staged thing. It's a bit like High Noon, the three sort of corrupt coppers walking into town with their shotguns and this sort of Amish community, because they're living centuries behind. They don't use modern cars. They just use horse and carts and anything natural off the land. And it's a beautiful looking film. It's wonderfully scored by Maurice Jarre, who did Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. And has these synth elements that his son is Jean-Michel Jarre, and incorporates that into the score. And I just forgot how beautiful this film was.
It's nice to have Amish people in for once.
And they cooperated with the filmmakers initially, and they obviously didn't want to be filmed, because that's one of the things they highlight in the film. They don't like having their picture taken, but they were very helpful in basically giving them the information to make it as authentic as possible. Yeah. And it's a very special film. I recommend it. And I just want to mention Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters. This is a Paul Schrader film, who made I referenced Cat People before on American Gigolo. He's it's about a Japanese novelist, real life story, who's almost like a Schrader type character. He's a very solitary guy in real life, and in real life he wrote these books and no one was listening to him, so he made a point of hijacking an army barracks in order to get attention, and held the general at ransom under a samurai sword, and so the world would have to listen to his message. And then he sort of pontificated to people how they're not missing the key things in life, and ultimately he committed suicide the samurai way. They call it seppuku,
harikiri,
yeah. And do that. But the film is intercut with scenes from his novels and done in a very flashy and colourful way. There's all the messages that he was pontificating are highlighted in the actual scenes from his novels, and they're acted like little play segments. Again, I saw this recently at the cinema and I was just overwhelmed. It was and it's got a beautiful, just to round off the whole music aspect, that Philip Glass does the music, and it was just sublime. It was it's what you should get from a film. It has a great message, and visually it's sumptuous, and initially no studio wanted to make it. He had to rely on his friends Francis Coppola and George Lucas. They were the only people who were willing to finance it, and thank goodness they did, because it was very special film.
Starchaser,
yeah, this was for me. Everyone knows, me and Star Wars go hand in hand, and this was literally a rip-off. It was a complete rip-off. It takes place on a mind world. These people, these humans, are basically under the oppression of a mechanical force, and they're mining crystals. These crystals are used to power various things. During one of their digs, they come across a hilt, and only a hilt of a sword. There's no blade, nothing. And this fairy basically turns up and says to Orin, who's the main character, you must find the blade. And he's like, okay. So him and his sort of girlfriend is they're trying to escape this mine world led by the evil Zygon, because they leave the mine system, all cavernous and whatnot, to a more mechanized sort of world above. And then okay. And of course, he manages to escape from there. His girlfriend, unfortunately, perishes. Zygon brutally strangles her to death. Darth Vader style.
Another PG?
It's actually a PG. Yeah, it's actually a PG. But yeah, they come across all the tropes of it. You've got the Stormtrooper-esque kind of troopers, and you've got a Han Solo rip-off character. You've got Princess Leia kind of character in there. Of course, you've got a talking droid, who's a female in this one.
Stop looking at my camera.
And Zygon himself, humanoid in look, is actually a droid himself. Because the blade is in Orin. He is the blade. And the blade only works against mechanical beings. And of course, when Zygon is attacked by it and then loses a half of his face, he thinks, what the fuck? Yeah. It's only when Lauren dispatches him, Darth Maul style, that
so they predated that, really?
They predated Darth Maul's death in this movie. With Zygon.
George Lucas ripped off.
Yeah, thanks, George. He probably thought no one saw this movie. I did. Also, on the Star Wars vibe, we had another Ewok spin-off movie called Battle for Endor.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Gleason, Clarence Beeks.
Oh, he's back again.
He's in this film. He appears as the kids, obviously from the previous Endor movie. They reunite with their family.
He's not aggressive with the children in this.
No, he's not.
Oh.
That's recast, and it's Paul Gleason.
Right.
He's got like a minute of screen time because the family are quickly offed in this movie by a bunch of marauders.
Right.
And it's a bit, thinking, even the brother, the little girl's brother, he's off in this movie, off screen, but I think for crying out loud, that's nasty. And Wilfred Brimley's in this, want some candy, little girl?
He had a busy year, didn't he?
He had a busy year, and apparently he was a bit of a prick on this film. He didn't get on with the director. So he was directed by another member of the crew. Yeah, there's this creature called Blurgs in this film, which people might have seen in the Mandalorian TV series. Queel, the guy Mandalorian goes to see in episode 1, has this kind of really weird looking two-legged creature.
Oh, I know.
Against the monster, and these were actually from this movie. This is where they were from. Blurgs, they are called. And moving on to a film called Enemy Mine. Dennis Quaid, Louis Gossett Jr., the great Louis Gossett Jr.
Reunited from Jaws 3.
Jaws 3 reunion, yes, they're right. Directed by Wolfgang Peterson. He wasn't the original director for this, but
that's boot.
Wolfgang Peterson directed this movie, and it's basically humans are warring with an alien species called Drax, D-R-A-C, and Dennis Quaid's having like a bit of a dogfight with this thing, and they both crash land on this planet, and it's not a very hospitable planet. The creatures there are trying to kill them both, and they have to form a sort of a reluctant alliance to work together, and we can try and survive here. It's great because it's a race thing. It's a race thing, and it shows races can work together. Because in the 80s, you had a lot of people, against people of different cultures and backgrounds. But this film showed that people, from no matter where you are, what part of the universe you're from, you can get together.
Yeah, they're thrown together, aren't they?
They're really thrown together. You put your differences aside, and you can overcome anything. And that's why I love this film.
Yeah, okay. It is a good film. You're right.
And it's also scored by Maurice Jarre as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I love Maurice.
Nice.
That's great. No, good.
Well, that kind of wraps up our 1985 podcast.
Yeah.
I've said this every time, but I'm going to reiterate. 80s movies were the best, and the reason why they are the fucking best is because you had the 70s movies before it. The flow of Hollywood from its seedy underbellies of the 20s and the 30s all the way up to the experimentation of the 40s and the 50s, and then the 60s and the 70s, and the horror stuff came in and everyone was starting to experiment there. And 80s, I think, is where it all kind of crescendos into this wonderful perfect state where you had movie producers sort of giving these little guys a chance and saying, all right, let's see what you can do. And they come up with some really fantastic stuff, and just the climate was perfect. It was like a perfect storm. And I wish I could live in the 80s forever with frizzy hair and sweatbands.
But we can't. But we can through with these films.
And leg warmers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I wish I could take Doc Martin's time machine and just go back.
Yeah.
And stay there.
Yeah.
Stay there.
I'll stay there. I thought, the 80s is over. I'm going to go back to 1980 again.
Yeah.
I live in the 80s.
I'd much prefer that time than this fucking god awful war-torn time.
But we can relive it through these films.
Yes, so every single film that we've mentioned, in not just this podcast, but our podcast previously, are very highly recommended. And if you're struggling with what to watch, then pick one of these movies. All right, fellas, so we're going to say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And
Y'all come back now.
make sure y'all come back now, you understand? Yeah. See you later, fellas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.